Hello and greetings, my friend. Back to the Red Delta Project YouTube channel, helping you break free of the diet and exercise rat race. I'm Matt Schifferly with another video review on a new product from Vector Athletics. We reviewed their squat belt a little bit while ago, and it was fantastic. Today we are looking at Vector Grips. Now, Vector Grips are basically exactly what they look like. They are an aluminum grip with some medium to aggressive knurling, depending on how sensitive your skin is. I frankly like the way it feels underneath me. And they have a notch cut in through them. And the primary purpose of these is to be used with bands. So that way, when you're doing exercises with big looped bands instead of the smaller ones that are just a simple tube with a handle on the end, now you can have a handle on the bigger, beefier, heavier bands that I much prefer to use, especially with clients, because the smaller bands are great for things like therapy and small muscle groups like rear flies. But if we really want to build some serious muscle and strength, we need big, heavy resistance, which means big, heavy bands. Problem with that being, of course, is that when you get really big and heavy, the bands are pinching and binding and creating a little bit of discomfort in your hands. These give you a firm grip that you can use. They offer plenty of support, stability, and even a little bit of rotational ability if you're doing things like curls. Now, I've used similar things out there on the market, but these tend to stand out amongst the competition for several reasons. One, these are metal. They're not plastic, which means that they're not going to flex. They're not going to pinch together and pinch your fingers and stuff, which has occurred to me on several occasions. These are solid, very well built. They don't have any sharp edges that are going to get caught on anything as well. Plus, the bigger size of these allows you to use much thicker, bigger bands, which actually is kind of the point. We don't really need handles for using the smaller, little, lighter weight bands. We need them for the big bands, and these are meant to accommodate those better than anything else that I've used out there. Of course, do keep in mind that with the size and the diameter of these, you do have a fairly big grip to be using. So if you have relatively small hands, they may feel a little bit on the bigger side, although I find them certainly perfectly comfortable and adequate for things like rows and deadlifts and so on. But just something to keep in mind that if you generally like a thinner handle for things like cable attachments and pull-up bars, these may be a little bit on the bigger side for you. So overall, a simple product that does a simple job better than anything else out there on the market. But what I really think these are best at isn't so much just band work, but instead for indulging in my love of DIY projects. Say I've had tons of DIY projects for suspension trainers and isometric devices and stuff, tons of videos. I made a whole playlist of it on the review side of the Red Delta Project channel. And I love DIY because you get to make things the way you want them to be made. That sometimes can save you money, although the amount of times I've DIY'd things, I'm certainly not saving money. But the biggest challenge that comes with a lot of DIY projects is the handle. Because you oftentimes can't get a decent handle. You're making it out of PVC, which is okay, but the grip usually isn't sufficient in many cases. But most importantly, when you're using a regular handle to thread things through, that complicates the DIY process, because if you're threading things like nylon and stuff through it, that means you've got to have an attachment or an end that you are attaching to something else, which means you got to be sewing things up. It was one of those pinch points when you're designing your DIY suspension straps and everything else. Being able to feed into a handle kind of makes things a little bit complicated. You can't quite do what you want. These solve that problem because you don't need to feed rope or straps or anything through the handle. You just feed it through the notch, which means that you can have just a simple loop of nylon or rope and just slip it in, and you can have the handle. And then you can remove the handle and you have a foot loop that you can use. So you don't need extra webbing and size and things for foot loops or other things that you're using for isometric trainers and stuff. This is basically a purpose-built handle for DIY projects that you can slip in and out and on and off as you will. And that way it gives you a lot more freedom and flexibility in the creative process. So as always, of course, there's the affiliate link down below if you want to check these out, and it does help to support RDP. Thank you very much to Vector Athletics for sending me a pair of these to play around with. I'm very impressed with the construction and the attention to detail with these. So if you're looking for a stronger, more comfortable way to use heavy bands, or even just a handle that you can put on rope or nylon webbing for DIY projects, these are the way to go. Let me know if you have questions down below in the comments. Appreciate you watching. Thank you very much as always. Be fit and live free.